This week in cruise news, guests throw punches over water space at CocoCay, a cruise scam is making the rounds again, and Carnival is testing adults-only sailings, but only if you're in the inner casino circle. And yeah, I'm a little salty about that one. I'm Melissa, a university professor who loves to cruise and who loves to talk ship. This week in cruise news, we're going to talk about a lot of different things, starting with some tensions at sea. Try tensions in the sea. Guests at Royal Caribbean's Perfect Day at CocoCay weren't exactly having the perfect day on May 24th, so this just happened recently. An altercation broke out at Chill Island, the supposedly quiet area of the private Bahamian destination, after cabana guests became furious about swimmers encroaching on their ocean space. Yes, ocean space. Now, these cabanas, they're expensive. I've booked these before at other cruise line private islands, so I kind of get it, but this is a little bit entitlement of the seas, but I want to know what you think. But anyway, the cabanas have buoy lines that kind of loosely mark off the area, but as you can imagine, the ocean doesn't really care about your boundaries and your upgraded cabanas. So currents kept pushing swimmers closer and closer, and that led to thoughts of people encroaching, which led to shouting, profanity, and eventually, unfortunately, full-blown physical confrontation, which we have seen a lot in cruise world of lately. I've talked about it at length. Now, according to guests nearby, members of the cabana group pursued another guest and his kid in the water, allegedly pushing, dunking, and throwing punches before security intervened. Now, neither Royal Caribbean nor the ships involved, which are believed to be Freedom and Oasis of the Seas. Now, Royal Caribbean has not yet commented on this situation, but their guest conduct policies are clear. Very similar to other cruise lines like Carnival that has repeated bad behavior problems. Bad behavior and behavior like this can lead to cabin confinement, outright bans entirely of cruising with that line, and potentially even legal charges. So I want to know what you think. If you're paying top dollar for these cabanas, and they are not cheap, sometimes they're $500 to $1,000. So should cabana guests have exclusive water access in front of those cabanas, or is this entitlement gone overboard? And if you thought that story was wild, I don't know what's better or worse, getting punched out at sea or getting sick at sea. Because while we're on the topic of Royal Caribbean, there's another health warning cruisers should be aware of, and this one includes those coveted private balcony hot tubs. The CDC has been tracking cases of Legionnaire's disease, which is a serious type of pneumonia linked to Legionella bacteria found in under-maintained hot tubs. And yes, it's shown up on cruise ships. Royal Caribbean recently notified passengers on its Symphony of the Seas that a guest had been diagnosed with the illness after sailing. Similar notices went out earlier this year too. While rare, Legionnaire's disease is spread by inhaling contaminated water droplets, and private balcony hot tubs are at a higher risk simply because they aren't used or cleaned as frequently as those public hot tubs, which might, at the face of it, be seen as a public cesspool where people just drink and probably pee in those hot tubs all day, but they actually could be grosser than the public ones. Now, to Royal Caribbean's credit, they've been working really closely with the CDC, and they've stepped up their sanitation protocols. But this is definitely something to keep in mind if your next suite comes with a bubbly ocean view. And this is also an important reminder of why it's so important that every cruiser, I don't care how young or healthy you are, carries travel insurance. It's surprisingly affordable, especially if you do an annual plan. If you're taking just 2 to 3 trips a year, it's well worth it versus an individual trip plan. And it covers not just your cruises, but all of your travel, road trips, land travel, everything throughout the year. If you want information, I can get a quote for you. Information is below. So be sure to check that out. Now, if you are booking a cruise and the thought of fights or Legionnaire's disease doesn't scare you away, please be aware of some new, or not so new, but resurgence in some cruise travel scams, specifically around Carnival Cruise Line. Scammers are getting more sophisticated, and Carnival's brand ambassador, John Heald, has recently issued a warning about 2 major fraud schemes targeting passengers. The first involves fake websites pretending to offer the UK's new ETA visa for British sailings. Some guests have paid as much as $200 to these scam sites, which is 4 times the actual cost, and ended up with fake documentation. Now, the second scam is hitting closer to home. This is where people are pretending to be Carnival representatives and charging cruisers up to $400 for what they're calling expedited document services. And they promise to send your travel info directly to the cruise line. Spoiler alert, they do not. Heald has urged guests to always double check any document request and to reach out directly to Carnival if something seems even remotely off. And if you're ever unsure, you can always pick up the phone and call 1-800-CARNIVAL. Be careful not to just Google a cruise line phone number, be it Carnival or another cruise line, because that's yet another scam where they'll pay for preferred listings on Google. So when you search for a cruise line phone number, it'll pull up a fake phone number that takes you to scammers, and you think you're calling the cruise line, and you're actually calling a scammer. So just be extra careful when you're calling the phone numbers. So 1-800-CARNIVAL, you can call, talk to Carnival directly. Do not ever just blanketly trust unsolicited calls or emails, no matter how official they may seem. Do your due diligence and make sure you don't get scammed. And of course, the best way in cruise world to ensure you don't get scammed is to work with a trusted, vetted travel agent. Someone on my team can help you out. I personally promise they're legit. They're gonna help you make sure that you don't get scammed, and it costs you nothing. So if you want us to help you book a trip, information is down below. Up next is MSC. They're shaking it up. MSC is changing their short cruise game, and it's not with a brand new ship, which is MSC World America. I'll be sailing that in July, so stay tuned for my honest review of that, but with one of their fan favorites, and I am a fan. And we're talking about MSC Seaside. MSC Seaside is heading back to Miami this fall, and will begin offering 3- and 4-night cruises to the Bahamas starting in November, all year round. Now, I love Seaside. It's a gorgeous ship. I will actually say it's probably the most beautiful cruise ship I've ever sailed. I'm not the biggest MSC fan. I have some polite criticisms for them, but they do provide tremendous bang for the buck. Their ships, their newer ships, are beautiful. Seaside is beautiful. So if you have time to do one of these shorter sailings, and they're pretty affordable, I encourage you to do so. Another benefit of these sailings is that every sailing will stop at Ocean Key. And this is another feather in MSC's cap. Of all the cruise line private islands, I think Ocean Key is one of the best. So all of the sailings on these shorter itineraries will stop at Ocean Key, which is MSC's private island, and many will also include Nassau. The Seaside, it's a pretty big ship. It holds over 4,100 guests, and it is the largest MSC ship ever dedicated full-time to these short itineraries. So this might be a smart move from a business perspective, and this actually follows in line with some moves that Royal Caribbean has been making. I know a lot of the loyal to Royal folks have been unhappy about it, as Royal Caribbean is putting their biggest, best, newest ships on these shorter sailings. And some critics say, well, those are booze cruise sailings. It attracts a rough kind of crowd. We don't want to cruise with those people. But as someone who has a full-time job, yes, I am an actual professor, and I have children, it's hard for me to get away for these long sailings, and I don't always want to sail the old crappy ships when I'm taking these shorter sailings. So I personally applaud these moves, but I'm curious what you think. Now, short cruises are hot right now, especially for newer cruisers who just want to test the waters without committing to a really long cruise, or those that, like me, can't get away for a long period of time always, or someone that just wants a long weekend or holiday getaway. Now, with newer ships like MSC World America setting sail from Miami, it's clear that MSC is betting big on the US market. This is very much a European cruise line. When you cruise with MSC, you're definitely going to feel those European vibes, but they're really starting to focus more on the US market, and this is one move in that direction. Texas cruisers, get excited. Disney Cruise Line, they're going year-round out of Galveston starting in 2027. So you have to wait a little bit, but still exciting nonetheless. So far, Disney has only done seasonal sailings from Galveston. And by the way, I just did a video on the Port of Galveston. I'll drop the link below. You can check that out if you're going to be cruising out of Galveston or you're considering it. Starting in just a couple of years, the Lone Star State will have Magic on tap all year round, and possibly aboard a much bigger ship. There's buzz that Disney Adventure, formerly Global Dream, could replace the Disney Magic in Galveston. The Adventure is a biggie. It's a 6,000 passenger ship currently preparing to launch from Singapore. And moving it to Texas would be a huge upgrade in both size and amenities. And hey, they say everything's bigger in Texas, right? With Miami maxed out and Galveston's regional population exploding, this is a pretty smart strategic move. So I expect other lines to follow suit, although I know other lines like Princess have recently scaled back in Galveston, but others are betting big on it. And we're starting to see some bigger ships calling on Galveston in the near and distant future. Now, I just sailed out of Galveston, not my favorite cruise port. I do like Texas. I like the friendliness of Texans, but the cruise port's just a little small and chaotic and hard to get to compared to the Florida ports. But I always welcome more opportunities for people to engage in cruising because I love it so much. All right, let's talk about something that's pretty exciting for me as a casino player, and that's Carnival's new adults-only sea sailings. And buckle up because I have some thoughts, as always. Carnival is testing out sailings exclusively for adults, so SEA, very clever. They're calling them sea cruises, and they're starting later this year. Now, they're currently available only by invitation and only if you're not only part of the Carnival Players Club Casino Loyalty Program, but you have to be a big fish. So what this means is that it's adults only. There's no kids, you have to be over 21. And this is kind of a unique move for Carnival that's generally been the family-friendly cruise line. A lot of folks I see online are saying, oh, this is Carnival trying to be like Virgin Voyages. I personally don't think that's the case. I don't think Carnival's necessarily testing the water or trying to compete with Virgin. Very different products, and I love both. I'm a Carny, but I also love Virgin as well, but very, very different. So I don't see this as Carnival trying to move in on Virgin Voyages territory, but rather I see that Carnival saw an opportunity where a cruise ship dry dock got pushed back. They had a ship available for sailing, and they figured, hey, let's try to fill it with people who make money, which are the casino players. So it does sound amazing, but the invitation only aspect has shut out a lot of cruisers. And as you know, if you follow my content, I am a casino player. I sail most frequently on Carnival. I'm certainly not a big fish, but I have started to spend more money than I would like, especially in the last year. So I am a little salty that I have not gotten a sea invitation. So if you're a Carnival cruiser, you play in the casinos, I'm curious if you've gotten one. Every day I see people posting about it on Facebook, and I have major FOMO. And I keep checking my email. I'm like, Carnival, you're playing. Send me my sea offer. Now I'm a little salty about that. But from what I've seen online, these sea sailing offers are pretty limited. They're very limited dates, they're very limited options. They are coming with some generous free play, which is very enticing, but it is on an older, tired ship that is in need of dry dock and a facelift. And these dates limitations are limiting for some people that can't get away necessarily on those dates, and it's also in the not too distant future. So you don't have a lot of time to plan for it. And also, you know, those casinos are going to be absolutely packed to the gills. But the idea of an adults-only Carnival cruise, that sounds pretty compelling to me. I love kids, including my own most of the time, but I think that would be a really cool experience to try. Now, this is obviously Carnival testing the waters, so to speak. So if these sea sailings do well, I anticipate that they are probably going to have many other adult-only itineraries, either geared toward casino players or maybe just the general public in the future. But it's exciting to see some experimentation and some innovation happening. And I, for one, am excited to see where they go for this. But Carnival, send me my invitation already. Fingers crossed. So I want to know what you think about these stories. Drop your comments below. I love chatting with you all. I love talking ship. And if you want to see more cruise news like this, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, visit my website, profmelissa.com. There's so much free cruise resources there that'll keep you reading for a while. Until next time, happy cruising.